Comcast Business is celebrating Small Business Month by giving you a $1,000 small business bonus. Just imagine the thousands of possibilities of a $1,000 prepaid card, swag for staff, new equipment powered by gig speeds, or a 3D printer. Rapid prototyping, anyone? Switch to Comcast Business for over 99.99% network reliability, advanced cybersecurity, and now get started with the $1,000 small business bonus. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
It's Not Your Fault is a podcast for parents, caregivers, and young people navigating the world and its challenges. Here's your host, Brandon Jones.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another installment of It Is Not Your Fault 18 Mental Health Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Jones, and on today's episode, you're going to come down memory lane with me, but I'm going to introduce you to a book that you may not have heard of. So this may be new information for you, and we're going to look at how to reclaim youth at risk. We're going to look at a book called Reclaiming Youth at Risk, Our Hope for the Future. Now, I was doing some cleaning and I was going through my books and I came across this book that I read probably in 2010, 2011. This book is called Reclaiming Youth at Risk, Our Hope for the Future. And this was one of the books that I received in grad school when I was getting my second master's. This is one of the textbooks that we utilized for one of our courses. And this book stood out to me, and I kept it for a reason, not just to do the podcast on it, but to go back and reference, as I knew in my future, as I'll be working with young people, building programming, building curriculum, things of that nature. I thought that this approach and this framework was very clear and important to understand when developing young people. So I kept this book, and I've gone back to it over the years a few times. But I'll be honest with you, I haven't gone back to it probably since about 2018, like this pre-pandemic. So it's been a while. It's been a while, and it stood out. And I said, "Hey, let me dust this back off and look at it. Look at some of the notes I've written in it, and see how much I've shifted and changed, and see how useful this book could be today." And what I wanted to do was introduce the book today, and then there's a four area framework in the book that I want to do the next four episodes of this podcast on, to do due diligence and why those areas are important for young people and what that looks like today. Because again, this book was written years ago, and we've come so far since the publishing of this book, and even since when I've read it, and youth culture shifted. But I think that this book, again, it provides a framework that any parent, caregiver, even a young person themselves, youth worker, anyone could utilize this to help them when they're engaging with young people. And this book was built on Native American philosophy. So, for our Native Americans, this book is something that has been shared from their cultural background. We know there's many different Native cultures, but this is kind of a more generalized Native perspective book, to be shared with everyone else on how to understand, how to engage youth, to help them, build and grow into the future. So I'm going to share this book with you all again. The actual authors of this book, and I may butcher names a little bit, so please bear with me. Larry K. Brentero, or Bentro, it could be Bentro. Martin Brokenleg, Stephen Bakarin are the three authors of this book. And again, this is one of the foundational texts when it comes to youth development and education, and particularly those who work with marginalized or struggling young people. Now, this book presented what's called the circle of discipline, or sorry, the circle of courage model. The circle of discipline is actually an organization. Salute to them. They do amazing work. But the circle of courage model, which again is rooted from Native American philosophy. They use a lot of developmental psychology in this, and then also some resilience research as well. And ultimately, what this framework does is it promotes a holistic, strength-based approach to working with young people, especially those young people who feel disconnected, those young people who have behavioral challenges, and those young people who have faced trauma or experienced trauma. Now, the circle of discipline is an aim to build for like universal growth. of all children, and there's four areas. The areas are these: belonging, mastery, independence, and generosity. Again, those four areas are belonging, mastery, independence, and generosity. And the thought process is when a young person is able to tap into each one of those areas, they're growing in a healthy way. And the book gives great examples and great breakdowns of each one of these categories. So I'm gonna try to do some due diligence and do it myself as well for you all here on the podcast. So let's start with belonging. And again, I'm going to make separate episodes that are dedicated to each one of these areas so we can really expound on what it means and what it looks like in today's world. So, general overview today. The first element of the circle of courage, belonging. Now, belonging is the need from close relationships and being a part of a community. Even when young people want to isolate themselves and keep themselves distanced from others, they are being a part of a community. It's very important to understand that. Mastery is the second area that we're going to look at, and that is the drive to achieve competence and solve problems. Almost everything we do is solving a problem, from taking a bath, from brushing our teeth, to going to sleep, to breathing, to learning how to write or communicate, to eating food. Um, a lot of the things that we take for granted in life, breathing, these things are problem solving things. Because if we didn't do these things, other types of consequences could show up. So, it's interesting when we start thinking about mastery of things, right? Those are things that we do to survive, but how do you get to do the things, or master the things that help you thrive, help you be creative, help you be innovative, help you build something that may not have been there or tweak something that is there? These are the things that really we can work on to help, enhance how young people develop and grow. All right, the third area is independence. Independence, so the development of personal power and responsibility. The development of personal power and responsibility. You know, we know that young people have no issues, adolescents have no issues with being independent. They'll leave in a quick second. They don't care what mom and dad always have to say. They want to be their own person. They want to be, quote unquote, grown, as my parents used to say. They want to be grown. But, being grown is one thing, but finding independence and finding yourself and starting to develop your identity is a whole nother thing. And it's not always negative. It's a natural occurring state of young people, and we have to facilitate and cherish that as best as we can. Some parents, they lose that control so early, 11, 12, 13 years old. These kids are out and doing whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. But maintaining that level of engagement is important and help them understand, how that independence is important, and they shouldn't take it for granted and they should not use it inappropriately. We see way too many kids using it inappropriately on a day-to-day basis. Whether it's in your personal life or even if you just go online, there's tons of videos and evidence and news clips of young people taking their independence to the extreme where it becomes problematic, dangerous, and traumatic for a lot of different people. All right, the fourth area, generosity, the desire to contribute to others and find purpose. If you've been a follower of this podcast, you know that I'm a big purpose person. One of my famous quotes that I've come up with is live life with purpose, on purpose, which ultimately means being intentional about the things that you do. And we want young people to be intentional with their generosity. We want them to contribute to others. We want them to find their purposes. We want them to do these things. Don't expect them to figure it all out when they're 14, 15, 16 years old. It may take another 10, 15 years. But as long as you show that support early and they know that they can count on you and that you're a respectable and trusted adult, those are the things that are important. So you being generous, you modeling healthy behaviors can help the young person, one, see an example, two, see themselves, and three, understand how it looks like when it's functioning. Very, very important. So again, generosity is the desire to contribute to others and find purpose. Now, Youth at Risk, this book. This book, the authors argue that many traditional approaches to discipline and education fail because they ignore core development needs. This was one of the things that hooked me early in this book was they called it out. They just call out, and I like people who call it out. They just called it out and said, "Hey, you're not these theories, these evidence-based practices, these things that we keep rinsing and repeating over and over and over. You're not even paying attention to the developmental needs." And in 2025 and beyond, what I would say is a lot of these programs don't even pay attention to the youth cultural needs, understanding the current youth culture that these kids are engaged in. Sometimes, we hear they don't understand the racial culture, the ethnic culture, sure. But in some instances, there's other cultural dynamics that are probably much more important to understand than just race. I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying that. It is what it is, but it's true. When you look at a lot of youth issues, a lot of that stems from a misunderstanding of youth culture. And then we set these expectations based on old understandings of youth culture and not the new modified version, the 2 through 3.0 version. And then we end up getting caught into this spin and cycle of just nonsense that ends up happening. So that's me on a soapbox. Let me get back. Let me get back focused on the podcast. So anyway, they figured it out, right? That a lot of these approaches are not focusing on the core development needs. So at-risk behaviors often arise when youth are denied one or more part of the circle, which was a key understanding. If a young person is denied belonging or mastery or independence or generosity, they start to become quote unquote at risk. They start to fall and find themselves in behaviors that are unhealthy that they should not be doing. So ultimately, what the book does is it offers a restorative justice approach, a strength-based practice approach, and they really couch it in um, getting away from punishing and labeling youth to advocating for restorative shifts and changes, using rational thinking and culturally respectful practices. In 2025, Brandon would call those culturally intelligent practices. And being able to do that to affirm a young person's value and their potential. That's important. I know it's hard to do in some school settings when you have, 400 plus kids in a building. But when you're in your home and you have just your children or even just young family members, when you're in a community and that community comes together and you may have 30 kids, when you're in a program or a project and you have several numbers of kids that come in and out, that's your opportunity to really influence those young people and potentially utilize some of this circle of courage and understand where they may be lacking, where they might not be lacking. So the book gives a lot of good perspective. It draws heavily on indigenous wisdom. The book calls for the education and treatment of youth to be culturally responsive, respectful to heritage, and focus on community wellness. They seen this years ago. I'm bringing this up to you all now, and I have in a few of the previous podcasts that community's gonna have to take back mental health. We can't just assume that a system's gonna fix it or talk therapy or medication. It's gonna be on us. The healing is in our hands. And I want to encourage you all to keep listening to this podcast and others. Keep doing your own work. Healing is subjective. What I mean by that is it doesn't look the same for everybody, but you will find what you need when you need it. It's up to you to apply it. And that's why I do the podcast the way that I do. I always give tips, I always give strategy. I never say I have the solution because honestly, you are the solution. Not to sound like a Star Trek or Star Wars movie or something, but you really are the solution. As long as it's not a serious, pristine mental illness, something that obviously is having a massive impact on your cognitive ability, you have to understand that you are the solution to your issue. Therapy is a tool, it is not the answer. Um, so keep that in mind as you take care of yourself. All right. I'll talk more about that. Like I said, I'm gonna dive deeper into this book. I'm gonna go have an episode on each one of these four areas. Again, belonging, mastery, or not interdependence. independence, and generosity. So definitely stay tuned to the podcast. Definitely connect with us. If you want to connect with me, there's three ways that you can do that. The first way is searching It's Not Your Fault podcast in the search bar of Facebook. You'll find our page. Go ahead and hit that like, follow us there, where you'll see, quality content like this, other great resources. Sometimes I post articles in there. It's amazing. Go ahead and check us out at It's Not Your Fault podcast Facebook group. Go ahead and just join us there. You can check out a lot of good information. The second place, if you want to reach out to me directly, you can do so at my website, www.jegna.org. That's Jegna, Jegna.org. Go ahead and send me a message there if you have a question or comment. Let me know how you're feeling, how you're doing, or just to learn a little bit more about myself. And then if you really, really like me, you definitely will like the other folks on our podcast network. What is that podcast network, Brandon? That podcast network is Sheletta Makes Me Laugh. That's ShelettaMakesMeLaugh.com. Go ahead and check us out there. And stay tuned. Definitely subscribe to the channel here. If you're watching us in the YouTube world, if you are watching us, if you're listening to us on one of the podcast apps, we appreciate you there as well. And I want to encourage everybody to be safe, be constructive, and be well. And we will see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
To check out previous episodes of It's Not Your Fault, or to learn more about Brandon Jones, log on to ShelettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
You know Sheletta makes you laugh, but did you know Sheletta Brundidge can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Sheletta Brundidge founded Sheletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShelettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShelettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Sheletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Sheletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShelettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.
When I was introduced to Bremer, I really appreciated it. It was more of a relationship. The support that we have in project-based lending, it's emboldening us to go after larger projects. That is a game changer for a small business. The resources and the support from Bremer Bank is exciting that I could stay with them forever. Sometimes when you're working with bankers, they relish the fact of saying no. With Bremer, it's like they're finding a way to say yes.
Nystrom is a manufacturer of specialty building products. We've been partners with Bremer for over 20 years. Through our relationship with Bremer, we've actually doubled in size over the last 10 years. We've been able to secure a working capital line of credit, equipment financing, real estate financing, and take advantage of their treasury management solutions. It's really been an invaluable partnership to have Bremer behind us and support us.